Hello, Learie McNicolls.
Okay, let's do this.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with me from your home in Hamilton, Ontario. I am excited to delve into your journey as a company member from 1984 to 1987. How did you come to be a performer with Toronto Dance Theatre?
Well, I went to a summer school in Banff back in '83. I
Oh,
was I was I was invited there by Laura Alonso from the Ballet Nacional in Cuba, and I had met her just doing some private classes around the city. She was teaching for someone, a woman. I believe her name was Mary Aslamazova.
huh.
She was guest teaching at a school, and I was doing classes to stay in shape. And that's how I met Laura the year before. But then I went back to Vancouver. And I got the scholarship to go to Banff, right, for 6 weeks, and I went, and that's where I met David Earle.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I met David in Banff, and he had just returned, I believe, from Italy, and that's where he did Sacra Conversazione.
Yeah, Sacra Conversazione. Oh my gosh, so you were an original in that cast then from the very
Yeah,
beginning.
I was one of the originals, and so was Lawrence Lemieux,
Oh, right. Okay.
and he also did another piece, a duet for him and me called Cloud Garden, and I danced with David. He did that, but he was busy that summer. He did Sacra that summer in Banff and Cloud Garden.
Oh, and so then did he invite you to come back and dance with the company or like what happened?
He invited me to come dance with the company because he thought I was so amazing, which I was,
Yes, you are.
and, and I am. I mean, like, I don't know, what was I, like 24 or some 25?
Uh-huh.
And I was like roaring, right? I was like a lion, you know? And true story was
I'm
I was
listening.
I was eating up movement as fast as those choreographers could, throw him out.
Yeah.
And he asked
Yeah.
me if I wanted to come with the company. I said, well, David, yeah, I heard that the company did Graham, et cetera, et cetera. I said, like, my only work in Graham is that, I came out of York. I did some Graham at York, which wasn't a lot, but like I knew the
Oh.
flow with that, and he said, well, you know, you should talk to Kenny because Kenny was the director then, right?
Yes, that's right.
So
Kenny Pearl.
called
Yeah.
up, he called up Kenny Pearl, and Kenny and me had this chat on the phone. I said, well, am I hired? Kenny said, well, yeah, come on out, and we'll just take it from there. So I came on at the end of the summer school and just started working for Toronto Dance Theatre.
Wow.
I know I got hired over the phone basically by Kenny, but with David's green light. But you
Oh,
want to hear a funny? You want to hear a funny story? And on my first day of work, a
yes,
Monday,
I
right?
do. Yeah.
I came out, I found an apartment at around Monday morning. I hadn't taken the sub in like years, right? So I took the sub. I can't remember where I was living. Maybe near Richmond Hill. I came down. I took the subway, and I fell asleep.
Oh my goodness.
I I missed this stop at Wellesley, and the train just kept going. And I woke up. I don't know where I woke up, and I realized like I showed up for work. I think around 11:15.
Oh,
Like my first day on the job. I was late.
you were late.
I
And,
was
and
late.
how was that received?
I just dove right in.
Wow. Do you even recall what piece they were working on at that time?
Oh my God, Rose! That first year, we had
Yeah.
so much repertoire. We had Trish Beatty started working on that duet with Grace Miyagawa,
And
Radical
yourself?
Light.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that was that. I think that might have been '84, but it started back in the first year I came. She started, like I guess the word would be vetting, like keeping an eye on me, blah blah blah, etc. So we were working on that with Grace, who I thought was the most stunningly beautiful dancer
Oh,
I'd ever worked with or seen.
yes.
And we I learned Untitled Quartet by Christopher,
Huh.
which I danced with Benoit, Grace, and Helen Jones.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's the first year. There was those pieces. Then there was a simple melody, which was Peter Randazzo. There was another one by David.
Was it Baroque Suite you're thinking about?
Baroque Suite. That's correct. Baroque Suite. It was a lot of steps. It was. Yeah, I remember that first year. It was like, wow. I signed up for it.
Yes,
It
yes.
was all the repertoire. So that's
Yeah.
that's the beginning of the repertoire, and then like there's the I don't know how many dozens and dozens of pieces we did. Glass houses, animated shorts in the years
Yeah.
that followed, right?
Yeah, because
A lot of dancing. It was a lot of dancing.
yeah, and
You know,
I guess, and throughout all that dancing too, like the company would have these like choreographic workshops as well.
that's
And
right.
yes, and I know that you created quite a few pieces there, eh?
I did. Yeah, I actually started one of my first pieces on when we were on tour because we had some downtime, and I was
Huh.
making notes to myself. And then when we got back to the company at Winchester Street, we started working on the workshop. I had a bit of material, like my little bag of tricks type of thing. But I learned a lot from the company, but but working there certainly had its challenges because we were working at four different individuals, right? Quite strong individuals who had their own ideas, their own way of doing things, right? Yeah,
Yes.
you went from David to Christopher, from Christopher to Peter, from Peter to Trish, right? So we got bounced around quite a bit. I know I felt it. I know certainly like the other artists did. Like certainly like you remember Merle Holloman,
Yes, of course.
David Rousseff, Aaron Small. They were all black dancers, right? We're all black dancers. And Rennie Highway was there that first year as well.
Sorry, who was?
Rennie Highway.
Oh, yeah.
But I was there for the dancing and I loved it. I tried to stay away from the politics of all the interacting that went on. With four very different people, characters, individuals, and then you had Kenny Pearl. Yeah, five. There were like five chiefs in that room sometimes. It was a lot. It was a lot to take in for a young dancer. I mean, that was my intro to TDT. I mean, it had some rough edges.
So, what were some of the challenges?
Things came up in rehearsal. I will be blunt, and you could delete this from the conversation or not. I mean, I leave that up to you. But they were racial remarks. They were racial slurs. Like they were comments about being black, dancing black, moving as a man from the Caribbean or a black man from another culture. And I always took offense to the fact that don't wear too many bright colors in here because this is it's grim, it's whatever. I'd be like, well, I'm a adult here. I'm respectful of the work. Why should if I wear a green unitard in the room
Yes.
be so that you can't work, that you can't, So those things we have to deal with, like, once a week or so, sometimes at the theater, you'd have to deal with that stuff before you go on to perform, especially me. When I think I'm one of the best interpreters that ever come through anybody's dance company, right? And I took offense. They call it black marks against your character or whatever, or you being difficult as an artist. But I think it's when we stood up for ourselves. We dealt with that stuff. I don't know, you're young, you just want to get on the stage. It's about the art. You're not thinking race or color, just get into that stage and that spotlight.
Yes.
But I think sometimes I believe, like the work suffered to a certain degree because we weren't allowed to be 100% ourselves in terms of how we wanted to interpret the work. And I think it came down to, well, just let me, you gave me the steps, you gave me the music, you gave me the directions, allow me to, to
Yeah,
do
and
what I do best.
interpret it. Yeah.
And I decided, like when I started working as a choreographer with my own dancers, that's one of the first things that came into the room. Yeah, you're allowed to be that amazing. That's why I hired you, because of the interpretation of how you executed steps on the stage. Your beauty. That's why I hired you, because I love how you work, how you perform, how you interpreted movement. One of the things I discovered in 2020, which is basically last month. I mean, the last 12 months is that how much of a weight that has been on my soul, dealing with race in this country, not just as a dancer, but like as a human being. How exhausting it's been. That phrase, tired of being tired. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true for me. I had no idea it weighed that heavily on me, and that when with all the protests in the United States and across the globe, with the death of George Floyd and the killing of so many young black men, that's been going on for so long and has been hidden, right? And
Yes.
it's never been reported. It just threw me for a loop, And one of the pieces I'm working on right now, like my newest piece, it's called Atonement, and it has specifically to do with not just race, being black, but the fact that, as a people, we have not mourned what happened to our ancestors at all. We rarely talk about it. Like, coming to school with friends, with family, it's never discussed like in depth. And one of the things I feel is like it's like almost we find it difficult to accept the atrocities that were perpetrated against us as human beings. That continues in even as we speak. How could this be? This is still happening, right? And
Yes.
I never thought of it that way as a dancer at all. To me, it was always about the art, about the dance. About taking all that darkness in ourselves and making it into art. But one of the reasons I left, Rose, I was happy there. I wasn't unhappy, but I left because I needed more. I needed more, not so much attention, but I needed, how can I put this? One of the reasons I left dance makers finally is that, I came to the conclusion one day, I'm sitting there, I'm working with Serge, and after the work, we talking, we discussing art and music. And I thought, I have never worked with a black choreographer. I had never danced professionally to a black composer or a musician that was black. That had to do with my culture. My culture in my entire career up to that point had never touched on anything that had to do with me as a person that was black or a person that came from the Caribbean who was ancestors of slavery. None of that stuff even was mentioned or touched upon. And I felt that strongly when I was finally decided to leave dance makers. I said, I can't do this type of art anymore. Art being in quotation marks, because it wasn't about color. It was just about something close to my soul.
Yes.
That I needed. I needed it so desperately.
Could you speak to me about leaving Toronto for Cuba?
When I left to go to Cuba, it was specifically because I needed to see other black dancers. There was none here. There was, maybe one at the National Ballet and one in Ottawa, I think, in what was then Ottawa Ballet Theatre. But then I needed more. I felt like I was in this wasteland of where everything was just white and I wasn't connecting to it. Even though I was working and I was being given attention, and I was given parts, but there's always this thing where how can I connect it on a deeper level? And I wasn't, one of the beauties of Cuba is that you walk into the room and everybody looks like you.
Yes.
And as I become, more and more senior, more of an elder, I believe that even as dancers, right, because we use our bodies to interpret, to speak for us. I write, I'm a writer as well, and I do song. I'm a song architect. But as a dancer, when I go into the room with other bodies, I'm thinking about the level of trauma that we carry that can only be shared or be in a room with someone that has shared that. It's a theory I'm working on, but I think it has a lot of weight to it because, you don't want to be told that your body doesn't fit this particular type or the you compare your body to the average white body, or it should look like this. You need to look like this. That shouldn't be on the table at all. So
Why did you decide to relocate to Hamilton after living in Toronto for so many years?
I mean, one of the reasons I ended up in Hamilton, believe it or not, is I came here and I got a building, fairly inexpensive, and I wanted to start a school, which I started. I wanted to do the ages between 18 and 21. It was a 3-year course for young adults, right? That people of color, Black, if they wanted to identify as BIPOC or whatever. I just wanted Black dancers, that I wanted to talk to these bodies, these Black bodies from the Caribbean that were descendants of slavery, people that knew what it was like to live inside of a traumatized ancestry, to live with what has now been termed post-traumatic slave syndrome, right?
Yes.
I mean, if you look at, when I look at some of the interpretation I've done in other people's work, it's in there. I can see it. The inheritance of that in my DNA when I dance, that drive, that to achieve something outside of myself, bigger than me. I think it's connected very much to those ancestral memories,
Yes.
If that makes any sense, Rose. And landing in Cuba allowed me to get to that place. So when I left Cuba and I started, really just traveling just all over the place. I was in Europe, I was in Hong Kong, I was in New Zealand and Singapore. I was just hopping around, just trying to find a place to fit as an artist, and I never found it. I ended up having to start my own work, to start my own company, at Met Productions in the East End when I came back to Toronto.
Yeah, I remember that. I went to many performances there in that space.
I mean, a lot of that work, I think, for me, if I look back now in hindsight, is about just trying to connect on a really deep level. That it didn't even matter what the idea was, and if it worked or not.
Yeah.
To bring all that, what I would call that sort of intergenerational trauma to the surface, so I could work with it and not have it live in my shadow world, pushing and bumping heads with me each time I wanted to go forward in my life, right? Because I have, sometimes life and art meets, and you never know which one's going to come out ahead.
Well, I just remember traveling to Hamilton in 2014 and seeing you perform Resurrection at the Pearl Canadian Summer Festival. And I was just blown away by the level and complexity of what you showed and bared and on the stage there through your physicality, your voice, your stories, the music that you chose to perform to. And I was sitting there and my heart was pounding, and I was just like, oh my gosh, witnessed this incredible performance of artistry and honesty, and it just looked like it was just so many years came pouring out on that solo that you performed.
Yes, thank you very much for saying that. Yeah, well, I'm happy you came.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what happened with your school in Hamilton?
And when I started the school in Hamilton, things started the first month went great, and then things started to fall apart in terms of lease, politics. The politics was bad. It was bad. I had to get out. I didn't sign up for that part. I did sign up for the art and the organization of my company and having students come in. I was working on setting up billets for kids from the Caribbean. How we were going to work it, and how we were going to stay here for 3 years, and how they were figuring out how to work. It was complicated and had help. But then the politics started with the building and people's names going to the building and stuff I didn't want any part of.
Yeah.
So I walked away. And I don't regret it. I regret not having it, begin, because right now the country has really very little for us as artists, as black artists. You know, artists that are colored, that are First Nations. We don't have anything. We don't have anything. You know, we keep trying. You know, I certainly have tried in the past, and I continue to.
Yes.
You know, I don't want to just keep working solo, man. I want some company roles. I want, you know.
Yes.
I want to work with other black bodies, you know, and it's trying, you know. It's great to be, I'm mentoring Jordan Allen right now, which is great.
Oh, fantastic, because he's our intern here at Toronto Dance Theatre.
Yeah, he's a great young man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't see many faces around here anymore, right? Because, you know, it's a pandemic.
Yes.
And no one's really going out, so.
No, you know, not at all.
The isolation sometimes can get to you. The isolation.
Well, how are you being, are you do your own dance class? Like, what are you doing? How are you keeping your body fit or in shape? Or
Yeah, I transformed one of my bedrooms into a dance studio.
Oh.
I transformed another one into a song studio.
Oh.
So I do that. You know, I work out every other day. I do my push-ups. I do a small bar, some stretches on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was very sad to hear of Trisha's passing. You know, I didn't know she was ill.
Yeah, it hit me. I was just like, oh my goodness. She's, you know, first of the founders to pass away, and she was a mentor and a teacher, and, you know, an
She gave a
interesting.
lot.
She gave, yeah.
A tremendous amount.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Learie, thank you so much for sharing and bearing and just, you know, giving your perspective and your thoughts. And I appreciate reconnecting and listening to you speak. You're amazing, as you say you are. You are amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, be safe, my sister.
Thank you, my brother. Take care, Learie.
You too, Rose.
Bye-bye.